It's Power and Grace, she's strong. Sicario's coming. Power and Grace powered up tonight to take the preferred two in 1:57.1.
Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of COSA-TV. Greg Blanchard joined today by special guest Brett MacDonald. Brett, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Good, thank you.
Good stuff. You're, I know, pretty excited about a particular trotting mare that you've been driving now for the better part of the last year or so, and her name is Power and Grace. Wanted to ask you about that track record performance recently in London. We're going to get a look at that in a moment. I mean, you know, to set a track record at this time of year on a half-mile track is pretty impressive. Did you have any indication before the race that the mare was up to that kind of a mile?
I figured that she can go fast. It's just kind of whether or not, and the track's been wicked in London, so I figured they'd go a pretty good mile over it the way the track's been and the way she's been racing. Usually, like when she's covered up for a couple starts, she'll go a really big mile on the front, and it just happened to be that night.
And she's been well traveled yourself as well. When racing was shut down a couple of months back, you relocated some horses and you did some driving yourself at Northfield Park, particularly in Ohio. And you know, she really held her own there. Were you happy? And I mean, I guess what were your expectations of her going down there, knowing that she was going to have to face some really tough company?
You know what? The first night she really surprised me. Like, I didn't really know how fast she could go, and she trotted in 54 the first start down there. And I thought, wow, like she's really going to go some big trips down here. And then we hit a little bit of tough luck, and then she won in 55. And that was a really big mile down there.
Compare the level of competition there, Brad, at Northfield, and especially when you get up around the open ranks to the horses that she'd be facing week in and week out here.
The higher end horses are really tough. Like, we took a couple different horses down there that race preferred 3 in London and stuff like that, and they were like numbers of 4,000 last threes and stuff racing there. When you get up in the top classes like the open and stuff like that, like she raced just below the open, it gets really tough. Like, for dummy claimers and stuff like that, it'd be relevant the same as here, but when you get up to the higher end horses, it's much tougher.
All right, well, let's have a look at the race. We're going to roll that in a second from London here recently. So again, yeah, maybe talk about the track condition, how it's been recently in particular, and I guess you know, set up that race for us on that particular day.
Yeah, like I kind of more or less just wanted to make sure that I kind of make front, and if she gets any breather at all, she's usually pretty tough on the front. So once I got a little bit of a breather and nobody really got to her, I thought that she was home free kind
of. Were you aware as the race was unfolding how fast you were going? And I'm sure that's something you've got to monitor, especially when you're racing one on the front end. You want to make sure you rate them properly, right?
Yeah, for sure. I didn't really know, like when she got down the half in 58 and then 3/4 127, I didn't know how much she'd get home just because those are big fractions over London, especially for that class. And I didn't really know how much the track record was for trot mares. And then she won in 57, and then Sugar said she beat the track record. So I was really surprised that that's what the track record was.
And on a night like that where the track is so good, and I'm sure you know, it's almost coming easy for the horse relative to a normal night. Was it kind of one of those where you were a little bit surprised how fast you were going as the race unfolded?
Yeah, like usually we get down the halves in like 59 there, miles in 58 and stuff like that. So 57 is kind of a big trip for for them, and she'd been racing really well, so I figured that she'd be able to go there.
And was there anything left in the tank? I mean, could she have gone maybe a little bit faster than the 57 mark?
I think when the weather gets a little bit better, she's going to be able to go faster over London. She trots the turns so well that the turns don't really bother her so much. So it's not like some horses, they go faster over Flamborough because the turns might be a little bit bigger, but the turns don't seem to bother her.
And just talk about her as an individual. Has to be almost like a Cadillac to drive a trotter like that. She's obviously got the high speed, but handles the track so brilliantly and has that tactical speed. How much of an advantage is it for a trotter in particular on a half-mile track to be that versatile?
Well, she's like driving a pacer, really. Like she just does it all on her own. You don't have to baby her. So that's a big thing too. You don't have to worry about if she's going to go on the run or anything in the first turn because she can leave and trot the turn so well that she's kind of like driving a big stock car.
Getting a look at it here, turning for home. Some good ones in behind you, but again, on this particular night, there was no catching her, and she just trots strong right through the wire. So, congratulations on that. A nice feather in the mare's cap, and she's really earned it. I think she needs some recognition and high marks for her versatility. We talked about that. Her durability as well. She's raced a lot of tough miles over the last couple of years and has ground out a lot of money and put the travel miles on as well. Got to be a great one to have in the barn.
Yeah, she is, and she never does anything wrong either. She's just great to have around. Great to do anything with, and she tries week in, week out. So, and the other thing too, people don't really realize she is a mare. She races against the boys every week. There's no mares class for her or anything like that, so it's quite a bit tougher on her to race against the boys every week.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you find that the mares can maybe be a touch more competitive against the best horses when it comes to trotters versus pacers, or do you find it's much of a difference?
I find there's a big difference racing like trotters against like mare trotters against the boys because there is such a diverse amount of them that you don't get it like the pacers, and there's so many.
Well, Brett, maybe tell us a bit about yourself now. We'll switch gears a little bit. This is, by my calculation, your 6th full season of driving, coming into your 7th now. And despite being relatively young in your career, you've had to travel a fair bit and relocate a few times, including this past year, as we mentioned. Do you feel though you've got yourself kind of stabilized, and are you where you want to be at this point in your career?
Yeah, I'm where I want to be. I want to be here. We went to Ohio just to try it because we didn't know how long we were going to be like shut down. But my plan was to come back as soon as we opened up. But yeah, this is where I want to be.
You started your career in Ottawa, and your father Ron, trained in that area for a number of years. A PEI native, of course, and he's relocated here as well. So tell us about the operation, where you're located, and just a bit of a background on how the stable looks right now, how it's set up in terms of the types of horses you have and the numbers and that type of thing.
We're stable at Baycairn. We have usually between 15 and 18. We kind of bounce around. It's kind of a couple when we come back from Ohio. A bunch of them got sick and stuff like that, so it was kind of a slow start getting back. But they're starting to come around a little bit more now. But we kind of race everything. There's babies and maidens and better class horses, so we kind of race everything.
Now, I know your father, Ronnie, pretty easygoing guy, but what's he like to work with day in and day out?
He's good to work with. We live together and work together every day, so some days it gets a little bit tough, but we get along pretty good.
And for him, at his age, to make the move to this part of the world, how has he found it so far? Do you think he's happy with how things have gone?
Yeah, he's happy. Like when I chose to make the move here, we had both stables. We had a stable here and a stable in Ottawa, and then when this is where I wanted to be, he moved here, and this is where we've been. I think it's not so bad because he's moved around a lot too, so he's been everywhere and done everything. So moving here wasn't such a big deal.
And what did you find the main differences were between racing and driving night in, night out at one particular track in that part of the province, and then coming here, a little bit different, and racing at more different tracks as well. What were the major differences between the two?
I think it was just kind of broadening your mind to finding out what all the horses were and stuff like that. So like I only drove there, so it was pretty easy. I knew what all the horses were and what they were capable of and stuff like that. And then when I moved here, there's so much more racing and a lot more people and different drivers and stuff like that. So you have to figure out what they're capable of and their weakness and what their strengths are. And I think it makes you a better driver too, racing 4 nights a week. And then at one track and then 3 nights a week at the other just makes you that much better.
And how tough is the driver colony at the signature track level right now? Tracks like Flamborough, Grand River, Western Fair in London. There's a certain number of guys that are kind of fighting for the prime drives every night. It seems competitive. How competitive is it out on the racetrack?
Well, that's the thing. You get 8 guys that can drive, so some of them have different weaknesses and some of them have different strengths, but they're all capable. They're all good, capable drivers. So it's tough that way. It kind of comes down to who you're driving for and what horses you have. So that's the toughness of that. So it makes it a lot tougher that way.
Well, you're coming off a career best season this past year. And, in terms of goals, what have you set for yourself this year? I know there's a big career milestone on the horizon, 1,000 wins. You've got that in your sights now. But what kind of goals are you setting for yourself, in the short term and bigger picture?
Every year I look to do better. So I try to make more money and have more wins than the year prior. So I've done that pretty well all the years to this year. So I'm off to kind of a slow start this year coming home from Ohio, but hopefully I can keep the ball rolling and everything will work out.
What do you think that is when you come back from another venue and you mentioned a slow start? Is it a matter of kind of having to start over? Is it have you lost some key drives that you have to work your way back on, or what do you think you attribute?
Yeah, that's the tough part, because like the drives that you were winning with when we shut down the first time. So like if you're not here the first couple of weeks when they open up, somebody else gets to drive them, and there is so many capable drivers that you don't get them back right away. You have to wait for either somebody to pick off, or sometimes they don't pick off. So it's kind of hard. You pick up the pieces and you hopefully that you get a couple of live drives and you work with that.
And I guess for drivers, you kind of have to be your own agent, right? Thoroughbred racing's different. They have people that represent them and trying to get them mounts on the top horses. But you guys, you're kind of your own person in that regard. So there's a bit of a PR aspect to it, I'm sure. Do you find that? And what's the key to trying to make sure that you're always available and top of mind for some of these trainers when they're looking for a top driver?
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of like if you get driving for somebody and hopefully you do well with them, so then it's kind of whoever drives for the bigger stables. Like I got driving a lot for Richard and doing well driving for Richard. So it's kind of key that if you hit a big barn that does really well, then you have success.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, again, you're coming off a big year last year, career best numbers, and it looks like things are starting to pick back up for you here in Ontario. And you've got a new track record just under your belt from about a week ago now here in London. Listen, continued good luck on the personal side, and continued good luck with Power and Grace as well.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's Brett MacDonald, one of the top young reinsmen in the province of Ontario. We thank him for joining us on this edition of COSA-TV. Make sure to follow us on our social media networks and to subscribe and like our YouTube channel for all of the latest content. We'll see you next time on another edition of COSA-TV.